Hi, I'm Koji Kumura from Happiness Realization Party, and thanks for tuning in to TruthD. On this channel, we share stories and insights about politics and economics. So let's jump right into today's topic, China and its threats. Just about 36 years ago, on June 4th, 1989, a tragic event known as the Tiananmen Square Massacre took place in China. It's said that thousands or even tens of thousands of civilians were killed. The Chinese government denies that massacre ever happened. And even today, it's an extremely sensitive topic in China. So what really happened? Back in the 1980s, China was going through huge changes. Deng Xiaoping, who was the leader of the Chinese Communist Party at the time, had launched a policy known as Reform and Opening Up. While the political system remained communist, China began adapting capitalism in the economy. But at the same time, issues like corruption among party officials and a growing gap between rich and poor led to rising frustration among the people. In the midst of all this, one of the party's top leaders, Hu Yaobang, who strongly supported democratic reforms, was ousted and later died in April 1989. His death sparked mass mourning and students gathered in Tiananmen Square, where people began calling for democratic reforms. Then came the tragedy. The Chinese People's Liberation Army moved in with tanks and soldiers to crush the peaceful protests. In response to the massacre, Western countries and Japan imposed economic sanctions on China. But Japan was the first among them to lift those sanctions, and by July 1990s, it had already resumed yuan loans to China. All of this happened more than 30 years ago, but the threats of the CCP hasn't gone away. In fact, China is now actively trying to spread communism around the world. Now, let's fast forward to what's happening today. Since March of this year, the Trump administration has frozen federal funds to Harvard University and has been canceling visas for Chinese students. In response, Japan's Ministry of Education has asked national universities to accept international students from Harvard. Top schools like Kyoto University and the University of Tokyo have already agreed to accept them. And in both the US and Europe, many are saying that the restriction on Harvard are an attack on academic freedom, but it's important to understand the background. The Trump administration is trying to stop the CCP from infiltrating the US. For example, Harvard has reportedly trained members of the Chinese paramilitary group called the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, known for leading the crackdown on the Uyghurs. There are also reports that Harvard has conducted joint research with Chinese universities linked to the PLA, and that it's been involved in organ transplant studies with partners linked to the CCP. It's also known that Xi Jinping's daughter, Xi Minza, studied at Harvard. These close relationships between China and Harvard have been concerned for years. Given all that, Japan's blind willingness to accept Harvard international students unconditionally is dangerously naive. And this response is similar to how quickly Japan lifted sanctions after the Tiananmen massacre. China has something called the National Intelligence Law, which forces all Chinese citizens, even students studying abroad, to cooperate with the CCP. And unfortunately, Chinese students at Harvard are not exception. CCP is doing everything it can to spread communism around the world. Communism denies religion and justifies violent revolution. It doesn't respect human rights at all. And that's how totalitarianism starts. What's the difference between totalitarian regimes and democratic countries? In a totalitarian state, the people are sacrificed for the sake of the state. But in a democracy, the government's job is to make the people happy. 36 years ago, Deng Xiaoping's government turned its guns on tens of thousands of its own people. That's the reality of communism and totalitarianism. It leads to the unhappiness and misery of many people. To ensure a better future for people around the world, democratic countries must firmly oppose the wrongdoing of the CCP, including issues related to Harvard. I strongly believe that people all over the world need a clear stance that draws the line between good and evil. That's all for today's video. Let us know what you think in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this meaningful.